Let me start with you, and then we'll come back to you so we keep it moving. Is Trump being an effective president so far?
I think Trump has done a really good job at being effective in creating scandal in the White House, and I have to be quite honest. It's a little disturbing to read articles like what just came out from the New Yorker with Ryan Lizza and some of the statements that were made by Scaramucci, who was supposed to be here but apparently didn't show up. You know, we are supposed to have some level of civility in government, regardless of what political affiliation you have. And right now, we are dealing with a Russia scandal. We're dealing with infighting within the White House. We're dealing with all sorts of chaos, and there have been no legislative wins so far. Now, Anne's right, it's been 7 months. But remember, when Trump was campaigning, he made a lot of promises about what he's going to do on day one. What he's going to do on day one. Well, what has he done since day one? I mean, he has definitely applied for more visas for foreign workers to come in and work for his properties. He's definitely done that. He has increased the cap for foreign workers to come into the country. And so he basically turned his back on his base, and I'm unsure whether or not they're even aware of that. So, no, he hasn't been an effective president. If anything, there's been a lot of entertaining drama and scandal, but that's it.
Well, I was going to say, for one thing, I would not consider the Scaramucci interview the highlight of the Trump presidency so far. But I was trying to remember, can you really not hear me?
You seriously can't hear her? I'm getting a lot of thumbs up.
I know this is crazy, but I kind of want to adjust it because I mic myself every day. Do you mind if I do it?
Ooh, look at that unity already.
Here.
All right.
Here. No, it can't be on that side.
Can you throw your hair over your shoulder?
There you go.
Talk a little.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. How's that working? Can you hear me? I think we're going to have to do that. What I was saying about the 7 months is when I think about, you know, before 9/11, what did Bush do? I don't remember anything. Until Obamacare passed, I don't remember anything Obama did. So, yeah, there's been a lot of excitement, some of which I'm not that thrilled about. But is he an effective president? Well, how do you judge that? What did he run on? What did he promise? I think none of his supporters, maybe some of them, really just thought it would be fun to have this tacky billionaire in the White House. I think most people thought, no, he's the only one raising the issues we have been dying to have some president raise. And, you know, screw you Republicans, screw you Democrats. We're going to put this nut in the Oval Office because he will at least put Americans first and not Wall Street first. And has he done that? Well, in 7 months, he's really going after MS-13. He's attempting to prevent terrorists from coming into the country. The courts, so we're getting massive resistance from the Democrats, as usual, as we got during the civil rights era. But he'll win in the end. He's interviewing for the wall. He has a fantastic attorney general. He has a fantastic head of ICE. So as for what he has promised and whether he's implementing it, I'd give him a B. I'm looking for an A by the midterms.
I want to be like Switzerland, like Gwen Eiffel here, and not take a side. But occasional things may jump out at me. Do you want to respond to that? I just want to.
If you don't mind, I would like to respond.
Yeah. But just sure. Want to. Does the president think that he has a fantastic attorney general? He seems to not agree with you.
Well, if we're going to get into the flaws of the Trump administration, I mean, I think the original sin was something that I've been perfectly open with him and the world about. Americans don't like nepotism. I don't think he should have brought his son-in-law into the White House, and I think a lot of this has to do with him being worried about the investigation going after his son-in-law. I think he's right not to want an independent counsel. There's a reason Congress got rid of the independent counsel law. You can't just have this unaccountable roving commission looking at everything you've ever done. I understand. I feel his pain. I feel his frustration. But no, you shouldn't be, posting your own attorney general. If you don't like him, fire him. You're the president. But look, he's done, I don't think that is nearly as bad as the first thing I didn't like that he did. And it's really just about two things. And that was, one of the things we voted for, don't get us involved in any more pointless wars. And that bombing of Syria, again, I see a little nepotism issue here. I mean, the claim in the New York Times and the Washington Post was Ivanka saw some pictures of children and started crying. Oh, daddy, we have to bomb Syria. So Ivanka cried, kids died. But his base punched back, and at least we are not involved in a war in Syria. And by the way, we would have been in Syria, in Russia, in Iran, if it had been anyone else running for president, with the possible exception of Bernie Sanders. So I would say he's effective. He hasn't gotten us involved in a pointless war, and he is pretty well following through on the immigration stuff. He's pretty well following through on the trade stuff. That's all I care about. I don't care about the tweets. I love the tweets.
All right. So there's quite a bit to jump in on, but the first thing that I want to address is this notion that he is not escalating war abroad, which is completely false. So within the first 3 months of his presidency, he actually escalated some of Obama's foreign policy in the form of drone strikes. In fact, it increased 423%. We are bombing like crazy in places like Yemen. Okay? And this whole notion that, this Muslim ban is trying to keep the terrorists out of the country. Doesn't anyone else find it a little strange that Saudi Arabia, one of the countries that was obviously involved in what happened on 9/11, is not part of that Muslim ban? Right? So, I mean, I know that the right wing has been very vociferous in terms of trying to make Saudi Arabia pay some consequences for it. Trump isn't making him pay any consequences because he has financial interest there. I want to go way back to what you said about, legislative wins and policy. When it comes to the issue of immigration, it's kind of fascinating because Obama got a lot of criticism for being soft on immigrants, right? But by the end of 2010, he had allocated $12 billion toward border security, and he had hired 40,000 new border agents. As a result, less undocumented immigrants were coming in, more of them were leaving. Between 2005 and 2010, we actually had 1.5 million undocumented immigrants leave the country, mostly because of economic reasons. The economy in Mexico was starting to do a little better, and people wanted to leave. So there were wins when it came to Obama. He did do things, and he got a lot of criticism from the left when it came to his immigration policy. But the reality is Donald Trump hasn't done anything yet other than attempt to ban people from some Muslim countries and pretend like he's a tough guy. In reality, he's not a tough guy. He hasn't succeeded in anything, and healthcare is the latest example.
English in their neighborhoods, I think, is extremely elitist and snooty. I'm quite sure you all wouldn't like it if your kids came home from school and they sounded like Sarah Palin. I think that would be a cultural shock for you. Certainly in California, most of the neighborhoods that have gone all Hispanic are black neighborhoods, and not through casual movement. One of the ways our culture changes with immigration, both legal and illegal, is there is not a lot of tolerance, as much tolerance as Americans have. You have black gangs, or rather Hispanic gangs, going into the black neighborhoods, screaming epithets, throwing bottles at their houses. The LA Times has written this up extensively. So I think it's very sneering and mocking of you to be referring to mostly African American and other immigrant neighborhoods that suddenly aren't speaking English, and they're afraid of Spanish. No, they think that their kids shouldn't be turned away from a job at McDonald's because they don't speak Spanish. That was one witness's testimony in Congress, a black guy from Los Angeles. Settlers, why does it make a difference that you're a settler? No, it isn't that we just first first come, first serve. No, it's that settlers created this country. It wasn't here. And yeah, a lot of things change when we bring in particularly such large numbers. I mean, there's a reason that the main immigration restrictionist group in the country is called Numbers USA, not, Mexicans suck USA. It's that we do need to assimilate people to this wonderful country of ours where we do learn to be tolerant and not practice racism or anti-Semitism and respect one another. Oh, well, for those of you who think that anti-Semitism has gotten worse, the ADL does studies on this every year, and every year they find that the main practitioners of anti-Semitism are your Hispanic friends. So you might want to reconsider the mass just amnestying them all as they're coming in. No, we do have a wonderful country. And we need to take time to assimilate people, not let them live in ghettos and bring in their cultures. There's a reason they left their cultures to come to our culture, and we didn't leave our culture to go to theirs.
When you say the settlers created the country, are you including the enslaved Americans as settlers, or is that a separate group?
Yes, I am, actually.
Settlers?
Not settlers in that sense, but as many people have pointed out, we are not a multiracial country, we are not a multicultural country, we are a biracial country. For 400 years, this country was black and white. And we have had black people here as long as white people.
Is this a biracial country?
And African Americans, can I finish this point? It seems to have set off the crowd. Look, African Americans obviously got the short end of the stick for about 200 years. This is why I was explaining in the last panel. This is why we have civil rights. This is why we have constitutional provisions. This is why we allow, this is why we have affirmative action. It wasn't the Rainbow Coalition. It was to make up, to redress specific grievances done to African Americans, slavery, Jim Crow laws, and now suddenly, everybody's running across the border and, oh, me too, I'm part of this. No. No, civil rights are for African Americans. They are not for people who arrived yesterday or last week. We didn't do anything to you. Republicans didn't do anything to anybody.
Okay,
there's just, wow, I don't even know where to start. So, in that long-winded rant, you proceeded to insult people in a racist way and then have the audacity to say that our immigration policies are racist or allowing more immigrants in would lead to more racism. It's absurd.
How is anything I said racist?
You just talked about people speaking Spanish and how parents don't want to hear that because they're concerned that their kids might want to end up working at McDonald's. You're assuming that people are coming into this country.
No, you weren't listening. No, there was a testimony before Congress from LA communities where black witnesses were going in saying, my kid applied to the local McDonald's, they wouldn't hire him because he didn't speak Spanish. It is mostly black communities that are being overwhelmed with illegal immigrants, and to be mocking them and saying they're afraid of Spanish people, I think is very dismissive and insulting.
Well, here's what happens in this hold on. You like the free market, right? You love the free market. I love the free market as well, as long as you don't have... Let me finish my point.
Keep going.
Okay. In a free market, of course, there will be competition for certain jobs, right? And so the most skilled worker is likely to get that position. Being bilingual is a skill. You're able to communicate. And I get it. If you're not bilingual, it makes you uncomfortable. You're not as competitive. But guess what? We live in a country where you have all the resources at your fingertips. You can learn a language for free online. And so, enough with this victimhood, because I feel like there's a lot of victimhood coming from you right now, right? If you want to compete for these jobs, go out there and learn. Pick yourself up by the bootstraps. Learn a new language. There's nothing wrong with knowledge.
You know, we only have an hour, and not only is the hootenanny going on cutting into time, but if you would spend more time making arguments and not characterizing me, we'd have a way